has been restricted on Facebook for the next 3 months because I said that a bird took a crap on Joe Biden. Meanwhile, a major newspaper has been allowed to dox a private citizen for the audacity of using leftists' own words to call them out for their insanity. We're going to talk about all of this on the Brittany Hughes Show. I'm Brittany Hughes. Thank you so much for joining me. So crazy week again. We've been restricted on Facebook before. MRC-TV has been censored. We've had our videos taken off of all sorts of platforms, whether it's Facebook or YouTube. This is not anything new, but this might be a new low in terms of ridiculousness. I cannot believe I actually have to report this. So last week, there was a video that went viral showing Joe Biden giving a speech in Iowa. Apparently, he was standing inside of a giant silo because that's, where you give speeches. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there appeared to be a dripping light-colored substance that hit his jacket. And of course, the internet immediately surmised that a bird had, in fact, taken a poop on Joe Biden. Now, this would be kind of funny, no matter what president it is. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I had a bit of a laugh when a fly landed on Mike Pence's head during a debate in 2020. I thought that was funny, and there were a lot of memes and jokes that came from that. I really don't care that it was Biden. I really don't care who it was. Whenever something like that is caught on camera, it makes for a funny moment, and the internet had a laugh at Biden's expense. But apparently we can't even laugh about this. Apparently that's not even worthy of a joke because the fact checkers immediately came out in droves to claim that it wasn't in fact bird poop on Joe Biden's jacket. It was distiller's grain that was apparently flying around the silo at the time. So I had reported, again, just in the interest of being funny, it wasn't a big story. It wasn't even that big of a deal at all. But I had reported this video that had gone viral and it was hilarious and whatever. And we got a message from Facebook that our page was being temporarily restricted for the next 90 days because we had shared false information because it wasn't, in fact, bird poop. So Facebook linked to this PolitiFact article that claimed that, and I'm going to read it here. This is insane. Quote, while there were birds in what the president called the giant barn, the aforementioned splatter was not in fact bird poop. It was rather bits of dried corn that had been flying around the silo during Biden's speech. So they admit now that there were birds that were flying around, but the splatter was not bird poop. It was absolutely 100% corn. How do they know that? Well, they took the word of a couple of photographers who were there in the audience, including a Des Moines Register photographer. So again, first of all, I need to apologize. I need to apologize because I did not realize when I was reporting this story that I was in fact reporting on something of grave national significance. I was clearly reporting on something that has incredible weight for our national discourse. As far as I know, I may have even attacked democracy itself. So I am very, very sorry for not approaching this story with the gravity that Facebook and PolitiFact apparently think that it deserves, which, by the way, side note, I don't know who's working over there at PolitiFact, but can you imagine being a fact checker over there? And this is the story that you get dumped with? No pun intended. This is the story that you get assigned. Like your editor actually comes over to your desk and is like, hey, John, we're gonna need you to look into rumors online that a bird crapped on Joe Biden's jacket, and we're gonna need you to write up a fact check on whether or not that's true. Like, do you have to have done something really, really bad and be on your boss's bad side to get assigned that story? I have been assigned some dumb stories in my life. I have never been assigned something as stupid as figuring out whether it was bird poop or corn on somebody's jacket. But that's what some poor sap over at PolitiFact had to figure out. Because again, this is a very grave story. This is incredibly important that we get this right. So incredibly important, in fact, that PolitiFact went with somebody's opinion as proof that that's what happened. So apparently some other guys said that it wasn't bird poop, it was corn, and that's what we went with. Now, I gotta be honest, in the interest of being incredibly factual here, because again, we're dealing with a very important story that we have to get the facts right. I have to tell you, we were not able to independently verify over at MRC-TV the actual substance that was on Biden's jacket. We have not seen any third-party lab testing of the substance in question. So we cannot in good faith report that it was in fact distiller's grain that was on the jacket, because again, it's very, very important, apparently, that we get this correct. So while we cannot say that it was bird poop, because we have been flagged as fake news for that, we also cannot say that it was corn, because we can't simply take somebody's word for the fact that it was corn. So this will forever remain a mystery for the ages. Poopgate. We do not know what substance this was, and we cannot report one way or the other, because again, gravely important that we get this correct. So that's why MRC-TV has now had our page restricted for the next 90 days, which, by the way, that's what's not a laughing matter here, because this impacts our bottom line. This means that people don't get to see our videos. We have over 3.3 million people that have voluntarily signed up for our content because they want to see it in their newsfeed. And Facebook is now telling those people that they cannot see what they've signed up to see. They cannot see our videos. They cannot see our blogs. They can't see all of the graphics we share. They can't see all of the information that we put out. They can't see all of the reports that we do. And we can't reach our audience that is voluntarily signed up for that, because I said that a bird crapped on Joe Biden, and apparently that offended the great gatekeepers over in Silicon Valley, who will do absolutely anything to protect this president, even from things that are just embarrassing, not even things that are that would damage him or things that would hurt his reelection chances. No, just literally things that people are using to get a very simple laugh that really have nothing to do with him whatsoever. But that's what the great truth arbiters on social media have deemed is so incredibly important that we have to be punished for sharing that. Now, by the same token, the Washington Post this past week actually outed the identity of an otherwise anonymous woman on Twitter who literally has done nothing but repost videos that leftists have shared on social media themselves. So if you're not familiar with Libs of TikTok, I'm sure you have probably seen her work all over the place. She's been featured on Fox News. Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham, I know, have pulled from her. Again, didn't even know that it was a her. It was just the Libs of TikTok account on Twitter. And this is an incredibly important account. I have long held that if you are not on Twitter, you're not missing much. And in fact, if you're not on Twitter, just save yourself. Seriously, it's mostly just a giant cesspool of really terrible people and really terrible takes. It's a huge time suck. But I've got to say, it's good for two things. If you are on Twitter or you've ever thought about being on Twitter, it's good for exactly two things. The first is breaking news, which oftentimes you can get, and you can get the raw news before the media has had a chance to spin it and put it through their little propaganda machine. You can get actual video of something happening, and you can get it quicker than it can hit the airwaves. So breaking news is one reason, and Libs of TikTok. Libs of TikTok is the other reason that if you're going to be on Twitter, you should be, if for no other reason than to follow this account, because this account has exposed things that I think a lot of people either didn't realize were happening, maybe didn't know the extent of it, or maybe they didn't, they thought that maybe it was happening, but it wasn't happening to them. It wasn't happening where they lived, and it wasn't happening with the pervasiveness that we have now seen. So Libs of TikTok literally simply reposts videos that have already been shared by other people, largely on the social media platform TikTok. TikTok has millions of users worldwide. A huge predominance of them are young, so kids and teenagers. This is a social media website that is hugely influential on upcoming generations. And what this account does, what Libs of TikTok does, is it exposes the absolutely insane, rabid leftism that liberals are trying to push, particularly on kids. Okay, so again, this is not an account that creates content. This is an account that simply reposts videos that liberals have already uploaded themselves. And we're talking about so-called non-binary teachers that are admitting to willfully and intentionally indoctrinating small children with LGBTQ LMNOP propaganda against their parents' wishes and without their knowledge. We're talking about just the most bizarre stuff you can possibly imagine. People that are identifying as animals, people that are demanding that you use the most insane pronouns, and people that are actually taking this bizarreness to the next level and using it to try to reshape our society, particularly by getting to kids. So that's what this Twitter account exposes. That's what this Twitter account shares with the rest of us. You can go online and check it out, but apparently she was becoming way too influential and she was becoming way too good at exposing sort of this bizarre, perverse pocket of leftism that has become more and more pervasive, that she apparently garnered the ire of a Washington Post reporter named Taylor Lorenz. If you don't know Taylor Lorenz, all I got to say is Google this chick. She is an absolutely horrifically terrible human being. She's the Washington Post's technology reporter. And here's what she did. She doxed Libs of TikTok by exposing this woman's identity. Not only that, but linked to personal information, including this woman's address, her business license number, her employer's name, her employer's address, and then published it in a Washington Post article that ran for God and man to see, and accused this woman of being an anti-trans activist that was ginning up hate towards the gay and trans community. Now, again, there are multiple reasons why this is disgusting beyond belief. The first of which is it makes no sense to out, no pun intended, to out this person without also addressing what it is this woman has been sharing. So the left, if you notice, they don't want to actually talk about the videos that this account was sharing because they're too bizarre and they're too disgusting and they're too alarming. They don't want to talk about that. So instead, they're going to attack the woman who was doing nothing but reposting something that someone else had already made public. Again, if you're a liberal and you're crazy and you don't want your craziness out there, don't post it in the first place. The only reason these videos were even out there was because bizarre leftists were taking to social media and putting themselves out there and putting their opinions out there. So if you're saying that this woman was exposing gay people or trans people and by the way, it wasn't just that. That's been more of the bent here recently, particularly with the Florida bill that went through, protecting small children against indoctrination in gay and trans propaganda in like kindergarten. So that's kind of been the slant here more recently, is exposing those nut jobs. But even before that, we're just talking about general displays of insane leftism by people who were putting themselves out there. So the Washington Post went after Libs of TikTok, claiming, and I quote, Libs of TikTok has become an agenda setter in right-wing online discourse. Again, we're not going to talk about the actual videos that she posts. We're not going to talk about the craziness she exposes. No, she's become an agenda setter in the right-wing online discourse. And the content it surfaces shows a direct correlation with the recent push in legislation and rhetoric directly targeting the LGBTQ plus community. Again, not going to talk about the actual content itself. We're simply going to accuse this woman of pushing, quote unquote, rhetoric targeting the LGBTQ community. Here's the first line of Taylor Lorenz's article. On March 8th, a Twitter account called Libs of TikTok posted a video of a woman teaching sex education to children in Kentucky, calling the woman in the video a predator. The next evening, the same clip was featured on Laura Ingram's Fox News program, prompting the host to ask, when did our public schools, any schools, become what are essentially grooming centers for gender identity radicals? Again, that's the only mention of this video that Lorenz describes. That's the only thing that she says about this video. I'm going to show you the actual clip because it is far more bizarre and disturbing. And of course, Lorenz and the Washington Post and the left doesn't want you to see it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want you to know that this is happening. This is a woman in Kentucky who is teaching a sexy summer camp for kids and saying that children should be taught how to masturbate from the time they can walk. Check it out.
That's how we should, like get down with yourself, explore your own body. Masturbation is really healthy, and I recommend it to people of all ages. All ages. As soon as my nephews could talk, they were doing that. That's what they were doing. Kids touch themselves. Kids start to ask questions, and we teach them the language for their bodies, right? That's your nose, touch your nose, show Aunt T, you can touch your nose. But my sister's not saying that when they're tugging at their penis, right? But it feels good, right? We have to learn ways to talk to young people about this so that they know how to explore their body consensually so that it's not in public, right? We don't want people exploring their bodies in public. That's not consensual. But exploring your body at any age, grandmas, grandpas, all of us.
Again, so that's what Lorenz describes as a video of a woman teaching sex education to children. As if that weren't bad enough. That by itself is bizarre. But when you actually see what this woman is doing, wouldn't you want to know that if this was somebody that had access at all to your kids? This is the kind of thing that Libs of TikTok regularly exposes. This is the kind of thing that you can find on her newsfeed. Again, it's raising awareness that these people are trying to get to your children with this agenda. But that's not what Lorenz and the Washington Post want you to think. They quote the ACLU saying that Libs of TikTok helps create right-wing propaganda. Lorenz then accuses her of spreading anti-trans conspiracy theories and ginning up fear and hatred for LGBTQ people. I'm going to show you a series of just a few of the literally thousands of clips and posts that Libs of TikTok has shared from leftists who willingly uploaded this to the internet themselves and are now upset that somebody exposed it for more people to see, which as far as I'm concerned, she was doing them a favor because these are clearly bizarre and attention-seeking people who wanted people to see this. I'm going to show you some of the stuff that she exposes. You can decide for yourself whether or not this is right-wing propaganda.
Hey, if your parents don't love and accept you for who you are this Christmas, fuck them. I'm your parents now. I'm proud of you. Drink some water. I love you. Bye.
Well, there's a couple things to say here. One is, even if you are looking for a threshold, let's say there's a threshold. I'm making this number up, but let's say it's at age 8. Still, that tells you that some adult child sex is permissible. Second, the notion that it's wrong even with a 1-year-old is not quite obvious to me. There are reports in some cultures of grandmothers filleting the baby boys to calm them down when they're colicky. Now, I don't know if this is true, but this is sort of widely reported as occurring in at least one culture, and it working, that the grandmothers believe this actually works. If this were to be true, and again, I don't know it to be true, if it were to be true, it's hard to see what would be wrong with it. So, yeah, I guess I think, no, I don't think there's a blanket. There's a point below which people aren't which this anything permissible. They don't have if they're interested in willing participation, sort of which is the way I structured it, then yeah, there's a point below. I don't think it's blanket wrong in anything because they don't have intentions or they don't have the sort of mental states that allow for willing participation. But no, I don't think it's blanket wrong at any age.
This is a tool I use to teach students about gender and sexuality. First up, we have sex assigned at birth. This is what the doctor says you are when you come out of the womb. It should be based on chromosomes, hormones, and genitals, but most time doctors just look at genitals. Next up, we have gender identity, which is totally different from sex assigned at birth. This is what you feel you are inside, and no one can see this from the outside. There are 3 different sliders that you can move up and down to describe your gender identity. Then we have gender expression, which is how you show your gender to the world. It's usually based in a sort of binary system, which isn't perfect. Again, you can slide these up and down to show the different gendered ways you express yourself. Then we jump down to attraction. We have physical attraction and emotional attraction. These are different. Again, there are sliders that a person can use to best describe their sexuality. This incredible resource is made by the Trans Student Educational Resources. You can go to their website right here. They're an incredible community.
The most controversial way I teach my kids consent is that they all choose their own gender identity because it's every person's right to be who they are. It's that simple.
So that was an interesting comment on my classroom decor video about how parents might complain. And there's actually a way to be really sneaky about supporting specifically queer students in your classroom. And I want to show you it. So historically, the pink triangle was actually used in concentration camps to identify gay women and also people who were asexual. And now it's been co-opted by the queer community to be a symbol of a safe space. Dropping a pink triangle somewhere in your room makes a huge difference because kids look for that, especially in places, especially in high school spaces. Kids will look for that. And so that's kind of a sneaky way to show your support if you're in an area that you might get some pushback on, but still want to make sure that you have things up that make your space inclusive.
Okay, so again, you notice if you read the Washington Post's article, they don't want to talk about these things. They don't want to address the issues that this montage of perversion brings up. They don't want to talk about how there are actually educators that think that teaching preschoolers and kindergarten about sex, not just gay, not just whether or not they might like to wear dresses instead of jeans or play with Barbies instead of trucks, kind of the innocuous way, the innocent way that the left likes to make this sound. We're not actually teaching sex to children. We're not teaching them to keep anything from their parents. We're just simply trying to love them and let them be who they are. And we want to be able to mention if we are ourselves in a same-sex relationship. We just want to be able to casually be. No, we're not talking about the sheen that the left puts on this to make it sound like it's not exactly what it is. This account has exposed countless educators that have admitted flat out, we are going to indoctrinate your children with this, whether you like it or not. I am not beholden to parents. I don't give a crap what parents think. I'm going to make sure that a child has a closet to change clothes if they want to wear something different at school, and then hide that from their parents. I'm going to make sure that children, by the time that they can walk, know how to touch their own bodies and are intimately familiar with themselves. That's what these people are pushing. That's real. But of course, the left doesn't want you to know that. That's why they dub the parental rights and education bill the Don't Say Gay bill, as if that's what it's about. It's about not being allowed to say gay. No, it's about pushing this kind of perversion on kids. And this account has been instrumental in helping expose that. The Washington Post, of course, because Lorenz immediately got massive pushback for this, immediately came out with a statement in her defense, and it is so full of lies, it's almost impossible to call them all out. Here's what they said. Taylor Lorenz is a diligent and accomplished journalist whose reporting methods comport entirely with the Washington Post's professional standards. The woman behind Libs of TikTok, and I'm not going to say her name. It's not that you can't go out and find it. I'm just not going to say it because I don't want to play this game with them. The Libs of TikTok account creator, in her management of the Libs of TikTok Twitter account and in media interviews, has had significant impact on public discourse, and her identity had become public knowledge on social media. We did not publish or link to any details about her personal life. Those two things right there are flat out lies. First of all, the original article that the Washington Post ran included a link to this woman's personal information, her business license, her address, her employer's address. To say we did not publish or link to any details about her personal life is a lie. That link was eventually removed from the article, but it was originally included. Now, I cannot sit here and prove that that was done on purpose. But I do know the editing process pretty well, both from my time in a secular newspaper and my time as an editor over at MRC. And I can tell you straight up, at the Washington Post's level, regardless of what you think of the actual credibility of their reporting or their slant or any of that, when it comes to just the technical editing process, a link like that doesn't often get past an editor. That would be the coincidence of the century that in this article of all articles, a link like that to that specific information in an article revealing somebody's identity who otherwise wants to remain anonymous, that link would be left in even temporarily before being taken down because it was an accident. Again, I can't prove that that was done on purpose, but I do find that to be a little bit too much of a coincidence. The second thing that is bizarre about this statement is when the Washington Post claims that the Libs of TikTok Twitter account creator, her identity had become public knowledge on social media. That's bullcrap, and I can tell you that's bullcrap. There have been multiple people that I know personally that have said that they've interviewed this woman and they didn't even know her name, and they were friendlies. They were conservatives who were on her side, who were supporting her, and they didn't even know her name because she didn't give it to them because she wanted to remain anonymous. Again, largely because of what happened to this woman after this article ran. To say that her identity had become public knowledge on social media makes no sense, in part because it's not true, and anybody who understands this story knows that it's not true. Anybody that has followed this account for any length of time knows that it's not true. But also the fact that if it was public knowledge on social media, why did the Washington Post feel the need to run an expose on her, revealing her identity as though this was some massive bombshell, as though they had some giant exclusive? If it's true that her identity had become public knowledge on social media already, then Taylor Lorenz is a sucky reporter. Because that basically means that all she did was compile information that was already out there. She didn't go dig up anything new. She didn't add anything new to the conversation. All she did was republish stuff that everybody already knew and brand it as an expose. Those things can't simultaneously be true. This can't be a revelation of her identity if her identity had already been revealed. And Lorenz can't be a diligent and accomplished journalist if all she does is go scrape up stuff that everybody already knows, slaps it in an article, and says that it's some exclusive piece. They give the game away right there when they say that they're revealing her identity. Of course her identity was not public knowledge on social media. And they know that. Just like they know that they linked to details about her personal life before they took it down, because of course that goes against journalistic ethical standards. So the problem here, Washington Post and Taylor Lorenz are claiming that they did not dox the Libs of TikTok account creator, because all they did was expose the identity of somebody who had become very influential in legislation, very influential in right-wing news and on conservative websites. And that's not doxing. First of all, when you link, even if you take it down, I don't give a crap if you take it down. I don't give a crap if you claim it was a mistake. I don't give a crap if you lie through your teeth about it. When you publish and everybody sees it, a link to somebody's personal information, that is by definition doxing. That's what it is. Doxing is when you put somebody's personal identifying information online and sick an online lynch mob against them, and you knowingly make them the target of harassment and violence and threats, and you do it on purpose, and you give hostile people the means to go after them by identifying them, not just by their name, but by other information. That is doxing. And Lorenz knows that because this is a woman that sobbed crocodile tears 2 weeks ago to MSNBC over her own harassment. This is what she had to say, boo-hooing her eyes out over having been the subject of mean tweets and then crying sexism. Here's what she had to say.
I've had to remove every single social tie. I had severe PTSD from this. I contemplated suicide. It got really bad. You feel like any little piece of information that gets out on you will be used by the worst people on the internet to destroy your life. And it's so isolating.
And terrifying.
It's horrifying. I'm so sorry.
You're fine. You're
It's
fine.
overwhelming. It's really hard.
Okay, so this is a woman that thinks that it's not okay to say mean things to her on Twitter, to criticize her in any way, because it's, and let me do my best Lorenz impression, horrible. It's horrible. It's just the worst. People said mean things to me, and I'm a woman, and that makes it so much worse. Bullcrap. Bullcrap, because she turned right around 2 weeks later and outed somebody who wanted to remain anonymous, who, again, was doing nothing other than reposting things that other people had already voluntarily put out, and was raising awareness of what was on this toxic Chinese-owned social media site that everybody's teenagers have access to, everybody's children have access to, and exposing that. And Lorenz made her a target of online harassment. And she knew that. And if you don't accept that this is doxing, check out what happened to another woman who had nothing at all to do with this story, except she had the unfortunate happenstance of sharing a name with the woman behind Libs of TikTok. Because there's over 7 billion people on the planet, chances are somebody else has the same name. Apparently that didn't occur to Lorenz or the Washington Post. Either that or they honestly just didn't care that this woman was going to get caught in the crossfire. Here are some of the messages that this poor woman has received simply because crazy leftists have misidentified her as their target. Reap what you sow, you hateful, lying hypocrite. Your entire life online has been spent endangering the life of children. Another person wrote, "You're what's wrong in this world. You're vile and disgusting. Your children should be taken away from you and put in a safer home. May you rot in hell." Again, this is a poor woman who apparently lived in Los Angeles. She said at one point that she currently lives in England. She's done nothing wrong, and now she's the target of messages like, "If you were at the Capitol January 6th, I suggest you leave America." She also said that people are now posting and tweeting her parents' home address, where she says her autistic sister also lives. This is doxing. This is exactly what Lorenz and the Washington Post knew was going to happen. This is what they wanted to happen. They knew that this woman, and apparently this other poor lady who just got caught up in it, was going to be the subject of vitriol and threats and violence. Lorenz knew that. Lorenz was apparently against this.
And online harassment is such a misnomer. I think it's a huge problem because harassment is a tool to silence people, especially women and people of color or people from marginalized identities, for speaking out. And there's a very intentional goal behind it. It's obviously it's death threats and all of that and rape threats on the daily. And it's not just Twitter. It's every single surface, right? My cell phone number getting out there, people calling, people harassing my family members, stalking me. All of that is incredibly terrifying and invasive. And it's bled out into the physical world too, which is even more terrifying, right? Yeah. But to me, I think what especially the media needs to understand about this is, in terms of protecting their own reporters, is this is just a tool. Harassment is a tool to kind of discredit and silence journalists.
The idea of doxing in general, the idea of online harassment, as a matter of fact, after she went on MSNBC, She got mad at them because they didn't handle the story correctly. She said that it ended up making harassment worse, not because she looked stupid bawling her eyes out, which, by the way, I didn't see an actual single real tear. This looked like my 2-year-old when he wants a cookie. He's not actually hurt. He's not actually upset. He just really, really, really wants attention. So even when you're trying to post a story that is helpful to somebody about how she's been harassed and it's just so absolutely terrible and it's a sympathetic story to her, if the backlash ends up being that she looks like even bigger of a moron and she gets even more harassment, which again, let's be honest, I'm pretty sure that to somebody like Lorenz, harassment simply means somebody didn't like what I had to say. But even if you post a sympathetic story to her, if you don't do it right and she gets even more mean tweets or mean things said about her, you're now contributing to doxing, and you've screwed up because now your victim, your subject, is dealing with even more of it. Again, the hypocrisy here, the double standards here, that this woman actually thinks that she is a victim. And of course, the left is immediately shilling for her, and the Washington Post saying that if Libs of TikTok didn't want her identity shared, she shouldn't have been running this account in the first place. To which I respond again. If you are a bizarre leftist with 47 face piercings, hair that's about 16 colors, and you go by, Xi, Jem, and Zher, and you say that you're going to teach kindergartners about masturbation, whether their parents like it or not, if that's you, and you put that out there on social media, don't get mad at the person that calls you out for being a perverted moron. That's not on them. That's on you for being a perverted moron. This is entirely on the left for going so off the deep end with this insanity. Again, it used to be that we differed over who should pay for healthcare. We differed over how high the tax rate should be. We differed on moral issues, but there was at least an understanding, even by people that didn't like it, that when it came to kids, maybe it's just me, I don't recall as a small child knowing anything about the sexual orientation of any of my teachers. I think back to some of the teachers that I had in school that I liked, some of my very favorite ones. To be honest, I'm not even sure if I knew whether they were married. I have no idea. I certainly didn't know to who. And I feel like that was kind of the understanding back then. At least by the vast majority of people. At least to the extent where if you disagreed, that was largely outside the realm of normal. Now, we have this pervading social media. We have teachers that believe this nonsense. We have leftists that believe this nonsense. We have LGBTQIA activists who believe this nonsense and who feel confident enough to put it out there on social media. But then when they get pushback, when it turns out people don't actually want their small children being taught this disgusting nonsense in taxpayer-funded schools, when they don't want it publicly paraded through their streets in full view of everyone, when they don't want it shoved down their throats in children's movies, and they start to push back, well, now we have major newspapers launching all-out internet campaigns simply for calling this out. This is how badly the left wants to indoctrinate your kids. This is how committed they are to this agenda. This is how sick and twisted that they have become. That they are going to push this come hell or high water, and they are going to attack anyone and anything that stands in their way. And that is exactly what just happened this past week. Make sure they can't do that to the Brittany Hughes Show, though. Make sure they can't do that to MRC TV. If you follow us on Facebook, make sure that you go check out our content. Facebook is not going to show it to you. So make sure you go check the page often, share our stuff because that's the only way that it gets out there at this point. Make sure that you subscribe to the Brittany Hughes Show on iTunes. Hit the little subscribe button. That way you're going to get an alert. You're not going to miss an episode. You can also find it on iHeartRadio, Odyssey, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. You can watch full episodes on Facebook. You got to go look for them. But on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Rumble. We will see you back here next week.